Good morning, everyone. We are super happy to be here at Cloud Next. So my name is Schalk. I'm an AppSheet product manager, and I'm joined here on stage with Mariz Melo. Feel free to introduce yourself.
Yep, I'm Mariz Melo. I'm interaction designer here at Google Cloud, and today we're going to talk about AppSheet and AI. So we have a packed agenda, so let's go for it. First we're going to actually see how AppSheet is accelerating innovation across businesses. We're going to see how that innovation now can be powered with AI. We're going to extend those capabilities with workspace and low-code, and finally bring all together with a GCP setup and see how that works all together for us. So Christian is going to walk us through here how to actually AppSheet accelerate innovation with AppSheet.
Yeah. So just to kind of set the stage, for those of you who have not seen AppSheet, basically AppSheet is next slide, click. There we go. AppSheet is essentially a no-code platform. So it allows people that are not professional developers, but who might be subject matter experts. Their head might be in the data, but they have an idea for an application. AppSheet is their partner. Essentially, it can help them generate applications, customize it. The applications can be rich and robust, very articulated stuff. So it's a no-code technology first, but you can extend it, which we'll get into later. It's very powerful, and it automatically delivers rich mobile and desktop experiences, and you can also install them on your iOS or Android environments. So it's a very flexible end-user environment. It essentially meets the users where they're at. It's also very agile. You can update an app in like seconds, click save, and then everyone can actually see the applications. You can iterate. It's overall, it's very friendly to work with. You can do versionings if you want, but you can also just quickly generate and update as you go along. And then finally, probably one of the most important points, if you're a workspace customer, you probably already have access to AppSheet directly. So last year we announced the rollout where we have essentially most of the workspace SKUs will come with AppSheet core already. And so you can begin working with AppSheet probably today in your own environment. All right? So just to kind of also set the stage where AppSheet fits in the larger picture, AppSheet serves as kind of like a cloud orchestrator where you have a vast set of data options. So you can connect, of course, to the Google properties such as Google Sheets, of course, cloud platforms, Cloud SQL, BigQuery, and so forth. But you can also connect to third-party data sources. So if you're coming with Microsoft Excel or AWS, you have basically full access to a whole variety of rich data sources that you can plug into your applications. And then for, as I mentioned, mobile and web UI is supported. It's a responsive design. It will work on your mobile phone, your desktop, tablet, doesn't really matter. And it will work essentially in the same form factor for all your different users. And then finally, the real heart of any AppSheet applications is its robust events-based automation engine. So this is where typically you would create a set of triggers that will call really anything. You could say send a message when a record is updated, or call an AppScript code, or call a webhook to interact with a web service. So you have a very rich palette where you can integrate with any kind of services. And speaking of integration, you also have the ability to connect to both the Google properties, such as like Workspace AppScript, which we'll show in a second, but also any third-party REST API and so forth. So yeah, you basically have kind of at the top of this ability to connect to really any data source and create any kind of end-user form factor. And also, from an enterprise perspective, especially if you have system developers, you want to have guardrails in place. You want to understand what all of your end users are doing. And so we have a very rich governance and administration policy. So you may have seen like a rollout of a new administration functionality that's coming online very soon. So very cool stuff. But yeah, it's a very rich enterprise governance capability that we've rolled into AppSheet already. And then finally, as you're seeing here at Cloud Next, we have a lot of new AI features that are in the process of being rolled out. So for example, they enhance the creator's ability to build applications, which Mariz is going to show shortly, but there's also AI enhancements that enhance the end user experience as well. All right? There we go. So before I hand it over to do the demo, I want to briefly return back to AppSheet as no code, but AppSheet can speak to different personas as well. So for a low-code persona, they can actually make use of AppSheet where they can tap into Workspace's low-code technology called AppScript. And so we have a number of demos that are utilizing that capability. And then, of course, for the pro code, this is where we find that AppSheet works very nicely in a complementary fashion, where you can essentially have your professional or your core IT staff build up a set of of services which can then be surfaced to your, essentially, AppSheet front-end builders or your business developers that can then connect to the cloud services that you built. So in that sense, it's like a kind of best of both worlds, where you have like a hybrid environment where you have your core IT with your professional development staff building a set of services that can take advantage of the full power of cloud, and then making that available to your business developers that may not even write any code and connect to that infrastructure very easily. So we have a working model of this that we'll definitely show you. All right. So basically, I'm going to hand it over to Mariz, who's going to start walking us through one of those early AI-assisted app creation, so Gemini and AppSheet.
All right.
I'll hand it over to you.
This is basically the first step to actually bring AI to your applications. We are focusing the creator here. So now it's going to be able to actually create applications by just writing a simple or complex prompt. As much as details as you put there is going to help AppSheet to generate the application that you're looking for. So I'm going to swap here to a quick demo. This is AppSheet, the landing page where you see all your apps and our databases as well. We have the create button. Inside of the app section here, you're going to see that in addition to the original ways to create an app with data, templates, and from scratch, you have a new option that's start with Gemini. We're going to be rolling out this soon. So we're going to click here to actually start with Gemini. You're going to see that there is a prompt that's given to you to actually how I'm actually going to write this application. There is an example here that you can see what you would be writing. I already have a prompt set up here for us. We're going to create a project management tool to projects and tasks. I'm going to send that to Gemini. As you can see, in a few seconds, you're going to get a structure of what that app would look like. You can see that now I have a tables and columns already set up for me, all from AI. I didn't say anything of this here. We have tasks status, we have projects and tasks. If you're not actually satisfied with this generation here, you can actually start over and ask for a different one, or improve the prompt that you gave initially to. But I'm satisfied. I'm going to create an app here. That's going to actually send us to the AppSheet editor, where all these pieces are coming together now. We have the app, we have the database, and even sometimes some automation is going to be there as well. So a little bit more seconds here, and then we should have an app fully functional here for us. And as you can see here in the right side panel, the preview panel, is your app. This is actually working right now with all the information that you gave to Gemini. Like I can inspect that, go to different sections, or I can actually change the layout of this as you would in any app with AppSheet. I can select maybe I want to display as a table or as a card. I can also go to the data to see if that fields are actually generated correctly and even improve this structure for your database. I can go to the data source and then actually see that Gemini not only generates the app, but also generates sample data that you can actually see the app functioning, what would be as an end result of this application. What's super powerful to actually see how that app would perform with data. So that's a great capability to have here. We can also go in even further improve this app by going to automations. And then, as I mentioned, if I want to create a new, send an email daily for something that happened here, or when a project is created, I can come to automation inside of AppSheet and do that from here. So even further updating this app and making it even better for you. So I'm going to swap back here to the slides. And as I mentioned, we just talked a little bit about the creator part of this, like how can you now create apps with AI. We also announced this week a data structure with Gemini that's going to be rolling out soon in a preview in the Q2. And then I'm going to send to Christian so he can talk about how to even extend this app with low code.
Okay, so we've got to make sure our slides are in sync with our demo here. So I'll go next slide. Okay, that looks like it's generally okay. Actually, I need to advance this one once. I'm going to go to this slide really quickly. What we're looking at is an architecture that we're going to be reviewing where we can essentially take the best of Workspace has to offer from a low-code perspective and actually plug that into an AppSheet front-end application. So in that sense, we have AppSheet over here on the left that could actually, maybe via an automation, trigger a call to some AppScript code. And the AppScript code could then go in and then call Gemini. So this is where we can send a prompt, a multimodal prompt that is, like an image and some text, and then that response can come back to our AppScript code, and then it can then go and call any number of different services in AppScript. So AppScript itself is very powerful for Workspace. It has over 30 different services that you can use to, say, create docs or send email, create slides, etc. So you have a very rich palette of things you can do in a low-code perspective on the AppSheet side of things. All right, I'll go to the next slide. So Mariz is going to tell us a little bit of how to, what you need from a workspace standpoint from a requirement.
These are just a little bit of requirements that you need for this kind of projects, right? You're going to have this project, the AppScript project set up. You're going to create that. You're going to have a Google Cloud project and also a bill account associated with that project so you can have access to the Gemini API. Then you're going to actually go to AI Studios to generate an API key that's going to be plugged in that code in AppScript. We're going to test the prompts in the AI Studio as well, and even fine-tune that and see how can you bring that inside of AppScript application. So Christian is going to walk us through how to do that.
All right, cool. Oh, that's the next one. Sorry, we're having trouble with the slide syncing. But anyway, we're ready to go with a laptop. I'll switch over here. And now, what we're looking at here is AI Studio. So if you haven't tried this out yet, I definitely recommend trying it out. And this is a very fun environment where you can start to get a feel for how to interact with Vertex AI or essentially Cloud AI in general. So in this case, we're looking at the Google AI Studio. And you'll want to go to the API key here and generate a first API key that you want to use in any kind of low-level request that you're doing. So now we're switching over to like the low-code persona, so not necessarily a no-code persona. So you want to be a little bit more familiar with how to work with APIs and sending API keys and such. So what I've done is just, actually I'll go ahead and show you how you could create a new prompt. So in this sense, I could create a chat prompt, which is more conversational, a free-form prompt, which I've actually saved off a few, where you can have like a prompt, send multimodal requests up to Gemini or whatever model you have, and a structured prompt. So to save some time, I've actually created a couple of prompts here just to play with. So here's a prompt that you can see. I have a photo that I preloaded, and I'm just asking a basic question. What is wrong with this picture? And this is where Gemini, in this case, provides analysis on this picture and says, okay, there's something going on here. The sprinkler is spraying water on the sidewalk. You know, this could be a problem. So that gave me the idea that this could actually be a cool way where you could set up an automated maintenance system where you could have essentially people snapping photos of things that are broken around your corporate environment. So in that case, I tried the idea out first in AI Studio. So it's like, you go over here to another prompt I have. I'll just jump over without saving that first one. And so I preloaded it with an image here, and as we can see, it's like a broken sink. These are all AI generated. It's kind of fun to generate the images as well. But anyway, I'm telling it a little bit more specifically, if there's a serious problem in this picture, create a title and make sure that there is a title, a severity level, as well as a description. And then most importantly, I want the response to be in JSON. So that's where it's very important, because I want to be able to take that response and then parse it and inject it into my database as well in a clean fashion. So in this case, I'm just going to do a quick test run here. And then Gemini will respond. In JSON, we have a title, leaking faucet, severity, medium, whatever. Doesn't really matter. And then I can just make sure that the plumbing is working. And then the next step would be to then go in, and I can click on the create code here. There's a little link up there I'll show you in a second. And then I can also jump into GCP, and there's a Vertex AI Studio, which is comparable to this one, but it provides more functionality, and it can generate code that you can actually run in your own environment. So to see this in practice, what I've done here is I built a very simple application which mirrors what we did in AI Studio. So in this case, I have a workflow that works when I take a photo. Let me just show you the data here. So I have the photo, I have the prompt, I have the response where the data is going to come back. I also send the URL of the actual photo with a virtual column. And then I have this automation, which will go through when a new record is created, when someone snaps a photo, that is. I want to call Gemini. And I have a bit of Gemini code here. In this case, it's just a simple function called Gemini, where I send the prompt and the image URL. And then as I execute, let me just open up the AppScript code here. Again, now this is the low-code persona. So I'm calling Gemini. I'm sending essentially the API key to my request. I build up a JSON structure, and I send it over the wire, and I use URL fetch to talk to the API directly. So it's very kind of like right there with the API. So that's basically it. Let me just go ahead and run through this and give a real simple test. So I go back to my emulator, and I'll click on plus. And let's grab a photo. So I'll just have like a photo lying around here that I can use. So there we go, we have a plant. So someone is in the corporate office and they're looking at their plants and, you know, what's going on here? So let's click save. So I preloaded the prompt just to make it easier. So basically what that's doing, snapping the photo, storing it in Drive, and then sending it upstream to Gemini in the architecture that I showed you a second ago. And then Gemini will analyze the photo and then come back and says, okay, No surprise, the plant is dead. So big deal. So anyway, I'm just like, testing the waters, playing with the plumbing to make sure it works. So now I've moved from AI Studio, and now we can work with AppSheet and AppScript directly. Now I'm going to bump it up to that second use case where I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to create an automated maintenance logging system, right? So I have this app over here called Maintenance Issue. So if I look at the data requirements a little bit more, I've added title, severity, and description. And then I also have like a toggle where I say, is this approved, right? And then I have the app over here running. And before I run the app, I'm going to show you the automations that are triggered here. So the first one is when a new record is created. When someone snaps a photo of something that's broken, I want to take that photo, call my Gemini code. So if I call the code, and I'm sending it, again, the prompt and the photo, essentially. And I have an object that I'm retrieving back. And that's going to give me a title, severity, and description. And then, as I take that response back, I'm going to set the return values from Gemini. So I'm going to check to see if the severity is high. And if it is a high severity, I'm going to basically send an email to a pre-designated approver. And that approver will then use a feature called Embedded App View, where they can review the incoming ticket request and click, yes, I've approved this or reviewed this, and send the automation to finish off its task. And then just to kind of finish off here, once that second approval is done, when an issue is reviewed and approved, it checks to see the condition of this record that's been updated. And I also have a kind of a fulfillment bit of script that will take essentially that record and send the ID of this issue, the title, severity, description, the photo, and that will generate a new custom document for that particular maintenance issue. So that represents kind of like the end state where I've actually logged a maintenance issue. All right, so let's go ahead and run this app. So I will click over to my emulator here. I'll just use the small form factor. I'll click on plus. Oh, I didn't show you the script necessarily. Yeah, let me just show you the script. So I'll save the demo part last. So the demo script here is I'll just jump over to the maintenance code here. And so here we're just sending the prompt. If there's a serious problem, create a title, severity, description, and classify it as high, low, medium. And then also the response must be in JSON. So that's the same prompt that we just used in AI Studio, right? And I do a little bit of like plumbing, parse the JSON, and then I send that back to the app. Later on, when it gets approved, I have a little code here that does create a maintenance doc, or essentially, okay, here's your issue, I'm going to generate a doc for you. And so it just plugs those values into a document. So nothing fancy, but basic low-code coding there, all right? So let's go back to the actual app here, and I will take a picture, and we'll kick the automation off. There we go. So I'm just going to grab a photo here. This one is a pretty egregious situation here. Snap a photo of the maintenance issue. Obviously, if your office looks like that, and you have, I mean, I've seen places that, yeah, that look like that. So I'll click save. And so someone's out there, hey, this looks horrible, let's take a picture of it. I've now stored it in my app, and then it's on Drive, and then we're making a call with AppScript out to Gemini. And then once Gemini receives it, it will do an analysis of the photo, and we'll get a response coming back where we say, hey, the printer is jammed, the severity is high. I've actually highlighted it in red, and it gives you a little bit more of the description. So great, so that actually worked. So that should, if you recall, kick off an email to an approver. So I'll just double check, uh-oh, attention, you have a high severity maintenance issue. I can go into my Gmail, and this will, using a feature called Embedded App View, pull up the record, and I could say, yes, the printer's jammed, I've seen it, go ahead and log it. And so I'm the approver, I'm saying, yes, go ahead and log it, and if I go back here, there's a second automation that will kick in that will actually generate that doc using that bit of AppScript code here. So we should see that any second now. So it's off generating the doc. And then there we go. Here you have, maintenance issue that was created. I pop open that freshly generated document, and we can see, again, the printer's jammed, and we got a bunch of messy stuff there, and that's what's going on. So this is essentially an approximation of how you would log a maintenance ticket in an automated fashion, but you can have actually a user come in and review these things in a true workflow approval started way. All right, so that pretty much takes care of that. I'm going to hand it back to Mariz, I guess, just to make sure. So we'll go back to the slides, and we have our slide clicker as well. Alrighty.
All right. All right, so let's now switch gears. We're going to talk about like the pro dev, like with GCP and AppSheet. Let's go to the next one. Mm-hmm. There is a series of requirements as well. Like we're going to move away from AppScript because we're not in the local land anymore. We're going to still have the GCP project and a billing account. And we're going to actually, instead of use the Google AI Studio, move to Vertex AI Studio to a more flexible environment, We don't need the API key because we're going to actually use a service account inside of Cloud to provide all the credentials that you need for your project. So we're going to also be able to test our code examples, test the prompt and fine-tune that. You could even use a fine-tuned model now inside of Vertex with your own data sets instead of a general Gemini knowledge base. And let's see how that works. All right. And because...
Next slide. There we go.
There we go. Because you're in GCP now, you actually have flexibility to use anything that you have access in GCP. When I say that, anything is anything. You can actually use a Cloud Run, as we're going to see actually for our setup, we're going to use Cloud Run to set up an entire application there that could be used not only for this setup of AppSheet and Gemini, but it could actually provide the code for the website, and you could leverage some of that to do the interconnection with AppSheet. You can also use Cloud Functions, or inside of Vertex now, inside of Gemini, you can use any other model that we have available in Model Garden. Like, that's a lot of flexibility that you have available at fingertips. Like, you can store your data in Firestore, Cloud SQL, BigQuery, anything that you want, and then bring that inside of AppSheet as well. So let's see how that will play for us here for our app. So we're going to build an app that's a Service Center app. We're going to put Vertex as the AI engine behind the scenes. We're going to still use Gemini as a Vision Pro model. We're going to set up a Cloud Run with Python code that's going to power this application. It's going to connect to a data service in Firestore, and we're going to make that same Cloud Run function to create an open API spec API that's going to actually use a data connector for AppSheet to bring that data inside of AppSheet as any other data source that you would have as Sheets or AppSheet database. And then we're going to have our images stored in Google Drive, but we could also use cloud storage for that as well. And let's see how that works.
All right, cool. So what I'm going to do is rather quickly just walk through that process in more detail. So I start off in the experimental phase where I'm bringing Vertex AI Studio, and I'm actually building out essentially a set of prompts that make sense, and I'm getting the right results as before, right? So then, once I do that, in Vertex AI Studio, I can actually go through, do my test prompts, and make sure that things are working as I expect them. And then the next step is I can go and actually generate code. So this is very handy. I click on the Get Code, and that will allow me to generate any number of different examples. So I can generate Python code, I can generate Node, Java. I actually like to start off with a quick curl test, just to make sure I got the basic plumbing from my own computing environment. And it's really cool to see that as you're doing these custom prompts, it's actually generating code that works with you right away. You don't have to do any additional setup here. So once I've got the code running locally, I said, okay, I have Cloud Platform at my fingertips. I can say, okay, how do I just take this up so I can make it available in the cloud? So naturally, a Cloud Run service makes sense, and that's what the architecture that we ended up going with. And so I can then begin to port my code. I first start off with the generated code, but then I can also continue to update it as well. So here's a Cloud Run UI. You can do this manually, or you can use the G-Cloud command line interface and build this stuff out rather easily, all right? So this is where the nitty-gritty comes in. So as Mariz mentioned, we want, say, like a local data store on cloud. So we're using Firestore in this case. So I can customize my generated code to actually save data to Firestore data. I can also generate essentially an open API spec or a compliant URL service that then AppSheet can then connect to. And this is where I mentioned before, we can have the meeting of both worlds, the non-coder who can create a front-end interface using AppSheet, connect to a more sophisticated architecture on GCP side, and thus you can just make it available in this case, all right? So once I've gone through that, I've created my API service, I have my data connector code, I have my data stored in Firestore. I can then take an AppSheet app and create a new data source that can connect to that API that I've now published as a Cloud Run engine in that sense. And then that takes us to this step. In AppSheet, I can go into the admin setting where I say, okay, I want to create a new data source, and I pass it the URL of my published Cloud Run service. So that way, our AppSheet app can then go ahead and establish a connection. So it's a two-way connection. It's like any other data source. And then when we're in AppSheet, we can then begin building an application off of that existing data. So just as if you would do an AppSheet like with a Google Sheet or whatever data source, I can do the same thing with this new API that we've created on the fly in GCP. All right, and so this represents our final architecture where we have our app over here. We have photos stored in data in the drive. I can call the OpenAPI compliant service, which is being run by Cloud GCP. And then also one final step is that since AppSheet stores well, as a default, it will store in Google Drive. We just open it up to a service account in my GCP project so that it can fetch the photos that's being stored in Google Drive and then pass it on to Gemini. I could also use Google Storage as a storage option for my app, but in this case, just showing the full flexibility that you get, right? All right, so we'll do the demo. I'm going to just quickly show the little bit of GCP part of it. So if we go back to my laptop here, and I will go to my car parts app. So this is an app on AppSheet where, as you can see, the data source is a car parts API. And this was the very first step in order to get the more interesting demo that Mariz is going to show. But this is just basically see if I can ask Gemini if it could identify a car part. So the scenario, as Mariz will explain, we have the idea where we have a car repair shop where we want to be able to snap a photo, and it will analyze what's going on, and we'll be able to see what the problem is, right? So I can add an image. I can throw in a photo. So in this case, I'll just grab one of my images here, and I want it to identify what this car part is. And that's going to allow us to do more sophisticated apps later in the second. All right, so once it comes back from our GCP instance, it will give us essentially what it analyzes. So we have 5-spoke wheel with red brake caliper. We can then go and start searching our internal database of parts that match that requirement. So that's just a kind of a tease for what the kind of apps that you can start to build. And later on in the app that Mariz is going to show, it'll actually show the full solution inside. All right, so I'm going to switch back to slides here.
All right, thank you, Christian. So now we're going to actually to a real company scenario, right? I'm going to have this fictional company called Electric. Electric is an EV car manufacturer. They are looking to roll out a new feature with AI that's to enable the frontline worker to be more effective doing their job. Like instead of them looking for parts and see if the inventory is available, we're going to provide that all through AI and the integration with GCP. So remember, our setup is the same setup that Christian showed. We have Firestore in the back end. We have all the data connection, open API, everything is connected in this app. And then now, if I switch to the app here in my mobile phone.
Oh, this is where we have that special surprise, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we have.
Not now,
actually,
not now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, oh, yeah.
Now, hold on. All right, so here I have the app. This is a frontline worker. He has tons of options here for the app itself. He actually arrived at the job. He want to check his schedule. We're going to have, if you're going to see that Vera is the first one that's coming out for bringing the automobile with some issue. He's going to check out here the details of that appointment. And then he just sees it, because he received an email from the company saying, hey, we're going to roll out this smart advice feature. So you should check it out. So he decided to check out that. But before he does that, let me just go over my internal library here to check a picture that is nothing to do with a car part and see what Gemini tells me. So this model is fine-tuned to identify car parts, and is also fine-tuned to understand what I have in my database. So you can do that with Vertex. You can actually use your own data sets. You don't need to rely on Gemini. And you can see that here it says, this is not a car part. Like, you should try again. So let's try again. And to try again, I'll help of Christian.
So we've been working on this. We actually have a car that's going to roll out, and we're going to actually take a photo of the car. Oh, wait a second. What?
Yep.
Oh, there's no car?
There's no.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Well, oh, okay. Well, if that's the best you can do, this is our car. Okay,
next
so
best thing.
It's a photo of something here. So we do what we can.
So I'm going to snap the photo of this one. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you, Anthony.
I'm going to snap the picture of the issue that Vera is having with her car. So let's see now what Gemini is going to tell us. Right? And remember, we fine-tune this model, is understand what the car parts are, and once it comes back the response from Gemini, we upload in this picture, getting the response. Once it updates that results, we're going to be able to move along with this problem resolution. You can see here that the tire is flat and the wheel is damaged. You should replace the tire and also maybe replace that wheel as well, right? And you can see that the parts affected here are the tire and the wheel. It also identifies which parts you should be looking in your inventory for. And as you can see here in the top, I have looks for the parts. I can go there. When I do that, this is actually fetching the information from the data storage right now, just for tires and wheels. And that brings back, I can select the tires and wheels. And then from that point on, I can actually select to actually, hey, create a service order. Christian already showed us our integration with the workspace that you can actually have a document sent to you to approval for the customer, and then they can quickly complete that service today. All right?
Cool. That's it.
I'll hand to Christian now to summarize everything that we learned today.
All right, we're finally finishing up here. We're just basically kind of packaged everything up. I hope you liked the demos. They all seem to go pretty well. Thank you, Anthony, for the car. That was awesome on a moment's notice here. So basically, as we just move on here, I wanted to kind of summarize what we're saying here. Basically, AppSheet itself provides no-code AI features. So not a professional developer, someone who's their head's in the data, they can take advantage of AI without even having to know all the stuff that we talked about, GCP or AI Studio. So that comes within like Gemini and AppSheet that Mariz showed. And we also have some other features coming out this year as well. Then, of course, for the low-code developer, you can take advantage of AppScript, which has a vast array of capabilities on the workspace side, where you can generate docs, generate slides. Doesn't really matter. You can build any kind of fulfillment scenario that you have. In my little demo with the maintenance issue is just kind of scratching the surface there. And then, of course, finally, if you have a typical IT environment where you have professional coders who are building services that are very specific and have like different technologies like Cloud Run, Firestore, et cetera, you can make that your professional developers build up these services and make it accessible to the non-code front-end client developer, where then they can meet together and build out the interface to talk to the data. So that's basically what we're saying. Like you can use AI in a number of different ways, from a non-coding standpoint to actually building out fully fleshed solutions that have, I would say, articulated like architectures, right? So complete your journey. There's some other sessions here that we definitely want you to check out. Also come visit us over in the demo grounds. We have the Innovate Hive demo booth with the sign that says no code. I'll be there later today, so feel free to come by and say hi. We also have our workspace showcase area, so you can go and see like a kind of like a cool demo that's been created and provided like a scenario. And so definitely some cool stuff to see. And then finally, feel free to take a snapshot of this. These are some useful links that you can go to first learn more about AppSheet. You can see the AppSheet community, the AppSheet help documentation, and then finally, you can go to all the workspace stuff that we've made available. And if you're using Google Cloud and AI, you can, of course, go to AI Studio or just go to the Vertex AI Studio in your cloud console and be able to try out some prompts with multimodal or what have you. You can really push the envelope and generate some example code. And then, once you want to ready to deploy, you can customize that code and store it or put it into a full GCP service that can then be accessible via an open API spec. All right? So that's basically our message here, just kind of reiterating. But we wanted to also throw a few other things here.
We also are looking to learn from you guys, like what you're looking to do with AI. Like our research team put a QR code here that you can scan to actually reach out to us directly, so you can understand the use case that you have, and also explain to you what is coming soon for AppSheet in the AI space. So we're looking forward to hear from you.